Attendees are in listening mode.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, October 13th. We are going to go into executive session to continue our discussion concerning Jody's extension of Jody's contract, because a public discussion would invade an open session and have a detrimental effect on the town's position. And then we will come back out to conduct our regular meeting. So if I could have a motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so we
And
will say
Andrea?
goodbye. And I, yes, we will say goodbye to Jody and Eric at this point.
Actually, you all need to.
We have to sign out.
Oh, we have to sign out. I'm sorry. Everybody has to sign out and sign back in. So
So
we will
just
do that. Be back
For
shortly.
so the attendees have to do the same thing, Andrea? Do they also have to sign back in at 7:30, or can they just stay where they are?
No, they have to sign back in at 7:30.
Okay, so thank you, attendees. We'll see you at 7:30. You'll have to log back in the same way.
Welcome to the webinar. Please stand by. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, October 13th. And we will start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mark.
I pledge of allegiance to the
The
flag
flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
liberty
and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so hello, everyone. So the first thing on our agenda is open forum and announcements. The Select Board would like to recognize Arnie Price, who is this year's award recipient from the Massachusetts Health Officers Association of the Michael D. Sirocco Award, which is given to annually to a member of the Massachusetts Health Officers Association, to someone who exemplifies the qualities of dedication, leadership, friendship, loyalty, and enthusiasm. And I will read what the Health Officers Association recognized about Arnie, and which all of us who know Arnie here in Westford certainly recognize and acknowledge him for. Arnie, for anybody who doesn't know, has worked part-time for the Westford Health Department for the past 14 years. He is dedicated and has gone well beyond what is expected to assist Westford and businesses with moving through and understanding the state COVID-19 changing guidance this year. He's been particularly involved in that and working with the health department, working with restaurants, working with food organizations in making sure they understand all the rules and regulations, making sure that they're in compliance with all the rules and regulations. Arnie is always ready to volunteer to help folks, to help anybody here in Westford. If you're having a private get-together, if you're doing an event such as East Boston Camps, he's always willing to reach out and help you and make sure that you're in compliance with all of our health regulations and inspections. He, as the Health Officers Association stated, Mr. Price exemplifies his dedication to the public health mission, his community, his job, and he sets an example to other staff and fellow public health colleagues on what is to be enthusiastic, loyal, and a leader in the field. So we join the Massachusetts Health Officers Association, Arnie, saying congratulations for an award, well-deserved and well-earned, and certainly on behalf of the town, thank you for all of your services and for all you do to keep all of us safe when it comes to food. So thank you very much. So does anybody else have anything for open forum from the board? Anita?
Yep, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Girl Scouts. Last Thursday, I was able to help facilitate a workshop on diversity. There were about 15 girls. It was really great, candid, honest conversation about diversity, how you can be an ally. And I just wanted to give a shout out because it was a really good conversation. Thank you for inviting me to participate.
Great. I see Chris Saunders looks like he's written something in the question box. I'm not sure, Chris, do you have something for open forum or is there a question, or did you just kind of hit the question box by mistake? Nope, I have no idea. Okay. Thanks, Chris. All right. So moving right along to our next item. And our next item is a joint meeting with the school committee in connection with the establishment of the Diversity, Equality, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And it's to consider increasing the DEI to 22 full members for 3-year terms expiring on June 30th, 2023, with the addition of a non-voting board of, with a non-voting select board liaison and a school committee liaison. So let me start this discussion off by saying that I have and am proposing that we appoint all 22 people who have applied to be on this committee. I know that initially when we established the charge for the committee, we said that it would be a committee of 9 people. One of the reasons that we put it at 9 was a belief that a committee much greater than 9 folks cannot or at times will not function effectively. It is my opinion that that is not always true. I personally have been on at least 4 committees where there have been 20 or more people on those committees, including the first master plan committee, which had 35 people on it, the master plan implementation committee, which followed that, which had about 20 to 25 people on it, the Stupinski Land Acquisition Committee that had, I think, 18 people on it, and the Stony Brook Master Plan, which led to what we now know is the Veterans Memorial Complex, which had more than 20 people on it to start with. All of those committees functioned well. All of those committees, I think, reached decisions and resolutions for the town that have stand the test of time and have helped move this town forward in the future. So I don't buy the proposition that simply because it's more than 9 people on a committee that it cannot function. In addition, I think that this is a committee that has a pretty big task in front of it. And I think that it may need subcommittees to help it fulfill its mission and to gather the information that it's going to need to gather. And by having a committee of this many people enables it to do that. And also, having looked at all of the applicants, I feel that we've gotten a really good cross-section of applicants from all sections of the community, from all cultures, from all ethnicities, young, old, male, female, and all genders. So personally, I would have a very hard time selecting 9 people to be on this committee. And because all of you have expressed your interest and all of you took the time to answer the questions that we posed really pretty comprehensively, it's my suggestion to the board that we appoint everybody to this committee along with a liaison from the select board and the school committee. So now I'll stop talking. Comments?
Looks like Mark has a comment.
Mark, go ahead. I think you're on mute, Mark.
Sorry.
Are you on mute?
Yeah, I was.
There you go.
Yeah, I was. Sorry about that. So generally, I agree with you. So I just have a few comments, Andrea, if I can. So there is no question that the 22 people who submitted their intentions and their backgrounds would be of huge importance. So I have just a few concerns. One of them being, as you read through all 22, there are many who have limited availabilities or very specific ability to meet at certain times. So first, I get concerned about there being able to be a quorum, given how people discuss what their availability would be. The second one is we have 2 of the applicants who are of the same family, who are married. I just want to have a conversation about that, whether that's of any concern to anybody. It's not a huge concern to me, but I'm not sure we've done that before, not that I can recall. What's great is there's 2 university-aged students who want to be a part of this, which I think is fantastic. I only have a concern to the extent that when the world gets back to normal and they're able to get back physically to the universities, if they're not there now, how that affects their ability to participate. And the last is really maybe a suggestion, which is to the extent that we do go forward with all 22, certainly at the first meeting, I think the group would be well served to talk about whether everybody wants to be a voting member of that committee, or whether there's a desire to be on the committee to help and support and not necessarily a voting member, even though I assume these will be open to the public. I don't think that's ever an issue. But if the 22 can't make meetings enough to therefore affect a quorum, whether they want to be a part of the committee, but as a worker bee, if you will, as opposed to and to share their voice, but not necessarily be a voting member. So those are just a few comments.
Tom?
Just on reflection, Andrea, I agree that both because of the exceptional quality of the applicants, which I'm just delighted with, and I encourage anyone from the public to take a look, really an amazing group. And also reflecting on other large committees, the Town School Safety Task Force, which Scott and I chair, doesn't have as many voting members, but has a group about this size and has been very effective just for the reasons you mentioned. It gives enough people to break into subcommittees and give focused areas quickly. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm just really excited with the group that's taking part in this.
Okay, Anita?
I have two things. One is that I'm really glad to see all the applicants as well. All the information, the background experiences are very impressive. And I have two questions. One is, how would we decide if, like, who's a voting member or how many seats? And if we want to leave it up to the committee, my only concern would be that, like, I don't want the committee to get held up by figuring out logistics. Whatever we can do to help them, then that kind of helps them kind of, you know, be on their way for the actual content work that they're interested in doing. So if there's any way to do that, I'd love to have that discussion. And I'm also curious to hear from the school committee. I'm not sure if we're just taking turns, we're going first, and then school committee is talking later, but I'm also interested in hearing their perspective as well. I don't see them on camera. I don't know the logistics behind this go-to meeting, but I just want to make sure that we hear from them too.
Okay, Scott, and I will ask to hear from the school committee. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not loving 22 people. I think it is too big, and we're asking a lot of that chairperson to hold it together. You know, committees that are that large, that succeed, you tend to have a veteran at the helm. So I trust them to, you know, choose wisely when they pick a chair, somebody who can really organize a team and subcommittees. But that being said, you know, our first effort at inclusion should not be exclusion, which would mean, you know, cutting anybody out of this. So I think, you know, given that we gave them some extra hoops to jump through, all of them did it, you know, in quite strong fashion. I could not vote no on anybody. So I think we do want to include them all, in my opinion, and just, you know, encourage them to pick a strong organizer to chair it.
Can I ask that all folks, if you're not speaking, to put yourselves on mute, please? Thanks. So I think to address one of the issues that Mark brought up, which was, you know, quorum and attendance and availability of folks. I think that some of those folks, you know, once the committee starts going and, you know, you sort of learn what it's about, may end up, you know, self-selecting out, realizing they don't have the time and the commitment to be a full member, but be, as you said, Mark, you know, hey, I can't come to all of the meetings, but here's what I can do, and, you know, volunteer in that way. So I think that might happen just within the course of the meeting, the meetings themselves and the establishment of the committee itself. So, I mean, obviously, if quorum got to be a problem, we'd have to come back and look at the committee and, you know, determine what steps we might have to take if that becomes a problem. But I'm going to be very optimistic that all of these folks are you know, committed, and you know, that won't be an issue. But if it is, then we'll address it at that point in time. Is the school committee, I know you're out there. Do any of you have any comments? Hi, Gloria.
Hey, Gloria.
Hello. Yes, we are out here. We were all attendees, but I believe people are getting promoted to panelists. So others may turn their cameras on and pop in if they also have comments. Yep, I see Chris. Other people are popping in. Yeah, thanks for having us here tonight. I think I'll echo some of the other comments that it was really exciting to see all of the enthusiasm for this group and the number of really thoughtful applications that were submitted from a really broad range of the community. And I admit when I first heard that there was a possibility of appointing everyone, I did have that initial reticence of, ooh, 22, that does sound like a big group to wrangle, as Scott and Mark have mentioned, but we're also giving this committee a very broad charge. And I can totally envision this committee deciding that there are a number of different components that they want to address, and they might have, you know, subcommittees and subgroups, as Tom mentioned, that, you know, Town and Safety Task Force has done to great success. So I think it is a wonderful idea to include everyone. And to Scott's point of, if we are having a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, let's start with inclusion, and let's include everyone who has stepped up. I think, to some of Mark's concerns, I think in terms of quorum and availability, it does make sense, I think, to let the 22 people have that discussion. And if, depending on when they decide to meet, how often they decide to meet, if someone does realize it doesn't meet their personal time availability, maybe they do self-select and say, I'm just going to be an assist, but not a voting member, so that it wouldn't impact quorum. And I think that's something we could leave to their discussion. Regarding the concern about a married couple, I don't have any particular concerns about that. I don't, to my knowledge, unless someone else knows better, I don't think there's a prohibition to that. And certainly, you know, married couples aren't necessarily don't agree on everything, and might have different viewpoints and different experiences that they could bring to the table. So I don't see there'd be any difficulty with that. And regarding the 2 students, I happen to know the 2 students coincidentally. I didn't even know that they were both applying, but these are really responsible kids. I don't think they would have put their hat in this ring unless they knew they could make the time commitment. And as we've learned, and we're all having this meeting remotely, I'm sure if they did return to where they're in school in New York and DC, they would just participate remotely and continue right on. Medha Palnati was one of the hosts of our Racial Justice Forum this summer, and she did that from Mexico. So she was a spectacular participant in that event from another country. So I don't see that being an impediment to their continuing with this group. So so those are my comments, and I'll leave it to others.
Andrea and Eric, I think Alicia has something she'd like to share, not to preclude anybody else, but I think she's got her hand up trying to get in.
Okay, Alicia?
I don't know, Eric, if we're at the limit, but if it's possible.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why I don't have camera, but so I do share some of the concerns about a committee that is too large, not necessarily being able to get anything done. But I think it also bears considering that we don't necessarily know what this subcommittee is going to be addressing. They may find that, you know, once they start looking at some of the issues that we put before them, that they may need to split off into subgroups in order to be able to better address things. I think it's also possible to give them, you know, some pretty clear instructions on maybe choosing co-chairs instead of a single chair so that responsibility can be shared. So as much as I have to agree, I did have pause when it first came to the number 22. I thought, how on earth will they get anything done? I think this is just the initial formation of this group. And though we want it to be permanent and we want them to keep doing their work going forward, we don't necessarily know what the work is going to be. And maybe we need to give them a little bit of a grace period where they try and figure out what their path will be and then come back and tell us what they need. Do they need more people? Do they need less? Do they need a rotating term limits, 1, 2, or 3 years, things like that? So I think there's, as much as, yes, I can hear all the concerns, I think there's space in the beginning for the committee to sort of figure out their own needs and their own path.
Okay. Any other members of the school committee?
I'll just say that everything that Gloria and Alicia said resonates with me. And as is often the case, they said it better than I did. So I'll let that stand.
Minkwon? And then Sean after Minkwon. Minkwon, you're on mute.
I joined probably like a minute late. I don't know if anybody raised that already. If they did, then I apologize. So is this a town committee?
Yes.
Okay, so the is now a residency requirement for the members?
We did not specifically make residency a requirement. I know that there is one individual who did apply, who is a resident of Chelmsford, but he is also the pastor of a church here in Westford. And since I believe that at one point we had a discussion about also trying to reach out to include the religious community, I think that he would serve the committee well, and the committee would be well served by having his participation.
I would prefer that the non-resident should not be a voting member, because otherwise, for example, we can have like 100 Westford residents going to like Chelmsford and then get onto their committee, right? So I do think that the contribution can be in many different ways, but being a voting member, it has to be a resident. That's where my take is.
I agree.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think I disagree, in particular in this case, because I understand your point, absolutely, Minkwon, but I feel like this is a powerful voice representing the congregation that's largely Westford based.
If he had no connection to Westford, I would agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, if he or any other person were just, from Chelmsford, Littleton, Acton, or whatever, applying for this committee, I would absolutely agree with you. But I think because he does have a very real connection here, that I'm perfectly comfortable with him being a voting member.
Yeah, I'm worrying about the precedent, because once we open this, and then for other town committees, if other town residents apply, somehow they're going to have some connection to this town. So are we going to actually opening this up?
Well, we've actually had committees in the past where folks who have not been residents of the town have been on the committees. We've had committees which have included folks who are business people here in Westford and who conduct business here in Westford. And they have been on committees in the past when the committee has obviously, dealt with something that has to do with business or, operating a business here in Westford. It has happened in the past, but again, the key is that the person really has to have a connection here in Westford, whether they do business in Westford, whether they live here in Westford, whether they are the leader of a religious organization here in Westford, but they have a strong and identifiable connection here in Westford. So that's always been sort of the rule of thumb.
The other point I want to make is that when I first look at the thought or the thinking to approve all 22, I was a little bit like, say, oh, when did G20 do anything, right? G20, they never actually accomplish anything. But then later on, when I think about it, I think this is a self-selection process. So although we have 22, it doesn't mean we're going to have 22 by the end of the year. Probably some people will self-select and then drop off from the committee. So then I got actually a little bit more comfortable with a 22, because maybe by the end of next year, half of the people, they cannot make the commitment, and then they drop off from the committee, and then it becomes a more manageable number. Then we can actually adjust the number of seats on the committee.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that there will be some self-selection, and again, I'll just say, I will say that the first master plan committee with 35 people ended up writing a master plan for the town, as well as 6 position statements for the town, dealing with various topics. So things can get done. It's a lot of work, no question about it, and it's commitment by the people who are on the committee, no question about it, but it can happen, and it has happened here in Westford. So I think, we give these folks a chance, and as everybody has said, sort of let the committee, self-select, figure out how they want to govern themselves, and move forward. The one thing I might suggest that we have done in the past with very large committees is that if, and this is for the committee to decide, it's simply a suggestion, but for the committee to consider, is that if an individual member misses 3 consecutive meetings without a legitimate and reasonable excuse, then that person should be asked whether or not they want to continue on the committee and whether or not they have the wherewithal and the time to do so. We have found that has worked in the past too. So Anita, and then Tom.
Yep, I just had 2 things. One is, are there, maybe we could put together a document, like a 1-pager or something, of best practices of committees that are really large in size that can give the committee ideas of in terms of structure or organization, just for ideas. I don't know if there's something like that already exists, but maybe we can put something together, some bullet points. And the other question I have is actually for the school committee, and I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how this committee would complement the diversity committee on the school side and the team that you're working with the superintendent, just so that people can kind of see how they are working together. It's not duplicative.
I think you're on mute, Gloria.
You're still on mute, Gloria.
Thank you. Sorry. I think that the school DEI committee is very focused on specific school matters in terms of professional development and training and communication within the school environment. So I think it does make sense for that group to continue with its charge. I would certainly think that we would want that group to be able to communicate with the town group, and certainly we would have a liaison that could assist with that. But I think that the town charge is so much broader, and it will look at issues in terms of how the schools are intersecting with the community, and it's going to look at a broader considerations within reporting structures, analysis of the whole community needs, and the schools are a part of that community. So it makes sense, I think, for these to be joint appointments. It makes sense for this group to address school issues, but I think for our professional educators within our school environment, it makes sense for them to continue on their path. And there's certainly going to be areas of overlap where they need to communicate, but I think they complement each other. They don't conflict with one another.
Tom, did you have something?
I think this is a great discussion. If folks are ready, I'm ready to make a motion and wanted to ask the chair if we're doing this as select board and then school committee, or whether as a joint meeting we would somehow do it all together.
We can try it all together. Are you good with that, Gloria?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So Tom, you want to make the motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we appoint to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the 22 full members for 3-year terms expiring on June 30th, 2023, with the addition of non-voting Board of Selectmen liaison and school committee liaison. And rather than read all the names, it's the 22 names that are listed in our agenda dated October 13th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have to do roll call vote, okay? So Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
I, Gloria,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Valerie,
Aye.
Ming Kwan,
Aye.
Alicia.
Aye.
Did I get everyone?
Yep.
Is Avery on the line?
Is
That's
Avery
the
on?
longest one.
No, Avery's not available tonight.
Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, two other things we need to do before we leave. Select Board, is there a motion to appoint our liaison?
I would like to make a motion to appoint Anita.
Is there a second?
Second
Anita, do you
discussed this ahead
accept?
of
and third and fourth.
Yes.
Okay, we just want to make sure you
This
accept
is not a cold call.
before you vote. All right. Tom,
Aye.
Anita, you get to vote for yourself?
Yeah.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye. Gloria, you want to do school committee?
Yep, we have a parallel. I would like to make a motion to appoint Ming Chen as our liaison to the DEI committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I got a second from Sean, and roll call. Chris?
Aye.
Ming Chen?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Valerie? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
And I would also be aye, so that would be unanimous from the school committee for our liaison.
So, okay, Tom, go ahead, and then I was going to say.
You may be thinking the same thing I am. Just a housekeeping item on setting up the first meeting.
Yeah.
Wondering if maybe Anita and the town staff could help with the doodle poll, just to help get that first meeting kicked off.
I was going to say the same thing. I think Anita and Ming Kwan is the liaisons from the school committee and the select board, along with the help of town staff, can coordinate get the first meeting going, and then the meeting itself and the group can decide, how they, make the decisions from there, how they want to go forward. Jody?
Yes, we're happy to help, and I would send that request to Sam. And then I just want to remind everybody needs to get sworn in the town clerk's office before your first meeting.
Okay. There were, Ming Kwan, let me just get back to you in a minute, because there are just a couple of comments that I want to go through and make sure that we hit everybody, okay? To the individual said, I'm fine not being a voting member, or just happy to serve. We're gonna leave that up to the committee and you folks to decide how you want to proceed with that. There was a question, what about the students? They would be invaluable, but if they move to New York, they can't participate. I think Gloria addressed that. For now, they certainly, I believe that they may be here or not, but they can certainly, they can certainly participate remotely. One of the things I think that as a select board, we do have a remote participation policy. In light of, the past 6 months and the fact that we've been conducting all of our meetings remotely, we just may want to take a look at that policy to see if it just needs to be amended or modified in light of what we've been doing for the past 6 months, if there's anything further we want to do with that. So, Jody, can you just sort of make a note of that for a future meeting?
Let me just say, with COVID, all remote meetings are allowed. So I'm not sure you need to look at it until COVID is over, and then we can certainly revisit it. But all meetings remotely are allowed under state law right now, other than town meeting.
Right. Okay. I think those were all the comments. Ming Kwan, I know you had a final comment that I could, and I said I would get back to you.
It's a more question to Jody or the town clerk. Is like with 22 people, what's the protocol for them to get into the town hall and swear in?
We're open for business, so wear your mask.
Do do they need to actually make appointments just in case there are too many people show up at the same time?
No, you don't need
No?
to make
Nope.
appointments, and
It's 7-Eleven, Minkwon. It's
it would
come in
be
anytime.
it would be unusual if you all got there at the same time, but we're poised, ready to handle it. Just wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, 8
Okay.
to 4, Monday through Friday.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure that there is no special protocol.
Okay.
Just
All right.
if you want to go in on Saturday and Sunday, you have to.
Okay, thank you all very much. This is very exciting. I know it took us a while to get here and to get the group together, but it is really exciting that we're moving forward. School committee, you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting if you so desire, but otherwise, have a good evening.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, school committee.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we are at our 7:55 p.m. item, which is a continuing discussion about town meeting. So for anybody who still doesn't know, town meeting is this Saturday, October 17th, starting at 9 o'clock, to be held at Westford Academy on the Trustees Field. If there is inclement weather, which is a possibility right now, the select board and the town moderator, along with the town manager, are authorized to make a decision to postpone the meeting. And the rain date is Sunday, October 18th at 9 a.m. at the Academy on the Field. If you remember last spring, you all delegated to me that authority so that we didn't have to call all of you at like 7:15 in the morning. I am wondering if you all want to do that again and delegate it to me so that you all don't have to get a phone call at 7:15 in the morning.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Oh yeah, second big.
All right. All those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott? Scott's thinking. Mark?
Yes, for
Aye.
sure.
Aye, okay. Okay, so now, moving forward to articles that we still either need to a couple we need to reconsider, and a couple that we're going to take positions on. So the first one is Article 6, which was the capital article, and as part of that was a request for $90,000 for a feasibility study for a school administration building. Jody, do you want to present why at this point we might want to be thinking about reconsidering this and sort of where we are? We have several feasibility studies out there at this point with funding that still hasn't been spent. So Jody?
Sure. So things are a little bit different than they were a year ago, as everyone knows. And so I think what we've been talking about is we have somewhere between 60 and 100,000 left for 51 Main. We have 100,000 set aside, I believe, 3 years ago for a recreation feasibility study. And we did appropriate another 320,000 for the 51 Main. On this this time on this warrant, we have an article to sell 63 Main. So we have unknowns on 51 Main, which the board put on hold, 63 Main, which might get sold, the library, which we have grants that seem to be coming up faster due to towns' fiscal situations. Then we have Rodenbush that I'm not really sure what's going on with them with the whole COVID. And then we have the school administration building, which I think they would like to move forward with a feasibility. So the FinCom, the Finance Committee, and the Capital Committee did meet and discuss this. The Permanent Town Building Committee has discussed it. And I think Capital and FinCom feel that we should hold off on appropriating another $90,000 for a feasibility for school admin until we figure out what we're doing with all these other buildings. So that would be our recommendation. My recommendation is let's just take a breath, get through town meeting, see what they want to do about 63 Main, and then regroup in November with the boards that are, applicable, and kind of figure out a plan for going forward, and then bring that to the spring town meeting. I just think the public probably deserves to know what we're doing with all these different moving pieces before we ask them to appropriate additional funds. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Comments, questions? No? So I think, Jody, did the select board, we took a vote to support that, did we not? So
yes, so you would want to reconsider that vote if you so choose.
Make a motion to reconsider the vote on feasibility study for the school administration building.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor of reconsideration, Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. So now then, we now need to take a vote on whether or not we are going to support the capital expenditure of $90,000 for a school administration feasibility study or not.
I'll make a motion to not recommend the $90,000 for a school administration feasibility study.
Second.
Any questions or discussion before we take the vote? Okay, seeing none. Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, Article 13. If you remember, this was the article having to do with the memorandum of understanding between the town of Westford and Westford CAT. The proponent of that has advised Jody that he's going to be moving to withdraw this at town meeting. Because it is on the warrant, it is a citizen's petition, it stays there, and then it can be dismissed at town meeting if town meeting so desires and so votes. But given that is there from the select board, a motion to support the dismissal of this article.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Article 15. So Article 15 is to request to first of all, Article 15 is to amend the town's general and zoning bylaws to reflect inclusive language amendments to the town charter pending before the general court. Since this article appeared on the town warrant, both Jody and I and John Giorgio, or actually Jody, John Giorgio and I all discussed this and recognized that several things. First of all, our inclusionary language to our charter has still not been approved by the state legislature. So on the off chance that they either don't approve it or they make changes to that language, it seems to be premature for us to, at this point, be again modifying our general bylaws and our zoning bylaws to include inclusionary language when we don't know what they're doing with the charter language. In addition, the zoning bylaws that are on this town meeting all reflect what I'll call the old language, or the non-inclusionary language, because that's what they're amending. So we would, in essence, be having conflicting zoning bylaws. If we did this, we would have bylaws that include the inclusionary language, bylaws that don't include the inclusionary language. We would have to bring these bylaws back if they pass, to then amend them again to include the inclusionary language. And it just seemed to all of us that that was getting way too complicated and way too messy, and that the best thing to do would be to ask that this, both the planning board and the select board ask that this article be dismissed, and that it be brought back at our annual town meeting in 2021, when we have clarity, hopefully, from the state legislature that they've accepted our inclusionary language in the charter, and then we can make all of these changes at once. So that's the reason for asking, requesting that this article be dismissed on the floor of town meeting. So happy to answer any questions.
Motion
Okay.
to recommend dismissal.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes. Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Anita? And Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Article 16. Okay, we're at the zoning bylaws, and Jeff Morissette is going to join us to give us the planning board report.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Jeff.
Jeff Morissette, Director of Land Use Management. Thank you for this opportunity. The first article is article number 16, which the intent is to clarify the minimum lot frontage requirement. And for those of you who don't know what is lot frontage, in the very simplest terms, it's the length of a lot along the street. And our zoning bylaw specifies the minimum lot frontage requirement in each zoning district in order to make a new lot. And so this amendment would clarify what we believe the intent has always been, and that is that the minimum lot frontage requirement must be satisfied by frontage that is continuous. So upon the advice of council, we propose adding one word to our zoning bylaw in Appendix C, and that is to make this an explicit requirement such that it says it must be satisfied with continuous frontage. So the planning board unanimously voted to recommend this article 500, and we thank you for your consideration and hopeful support.
Any questions?
I'll make a
Is there
motion to recommend.
There's
Second.
all those in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. The next article, Article 17, is for lapse of special permit. In case someone doesn't know, what is a special permit? It's a discretionary permit issued by a special permit granting authority that's called out in our zoning bylaw. Up until 2016, the lapse used to be 2 years. So when someone got an approval, they had 2 years to make use of that approval. And in 2016, the general laws were amended to allow for up to 3 years. We would like to amend our bylaws to be consistent with the general laws, to give our boards the ability to grant approval for up to 3 years. And what I will tell you is that in my time here, I think this amendment would have benefited the homeowners more than the businesses. The businesses have land use attorneys looking out for their interests, and it's the homeowners who have circumstances where it tends to lapse more frequently than for developers. So we're simply looking to amend the bylaw to give them the ability to offer up to 3 years instead of 2. The planning board offered their unanimous support for this article as well.
Okay. Any
Motion to
questions?
Motion to recommend. Second.
Is there? Thank you. All those in favor? Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Article 18.
Article 18. I think our town planner was going to speak to this one, Rebecca Cheney. Rebecca, are you out there? Not. This article proposes to amend our zoning bylaw to clarify area standards for accessory dwelling units. And for those of you who don't know, accessory dwelling units, those are more commonly known as in-law apartments, although there's no requirement that the occupant be related by blood or marriage. Right now in our zoning bylaw, there's a couple of undefined terms related to area. All we're looking to do is to clarify those area terms to use the defined term that's in our zoning bylaw. So it wouldn't effectively change how it's being administered. It would simply clarify for those applicants, they know exactly what the area means because it's defined in the bylaw. The planning board did also unanimously vote to recommend this article.
Any questions? Is there a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Thank you.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. And Jeff, Rebecca is here. I don't know if Rebecca has other articles that she's supposed to speak to, but she is here, okay?
Hi,
Sorry about
everyone.
that,
Sorry. Sorry for the late arrival. I wasn't let out of the gate in time. So I am going to cover Article 19, which is the next. And as some of you may recall, we were before you in February to discuss the regulation of massage establishments in town. And over the course of some months and through some research, the planning board has decided and voted last week 5-0 to recommend this be dismissed at town meeting and go back to committee and come back at a future town meeting. We just didn't get it to a place where we felt it was right for the town just yet and for consideration by the town. So that's where we stand with that one. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Make a motion to recommend dismissal.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Okay.
So
So we're at Article 20, which is, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry. Article 20 is a proposal to amend the zoning bylaw to delete section 6.3, which relates to growth management. This section of our bylaw expired in 2009, and we have no power to enforce any of these provisions. Yet it takes up 5 pages of our zoning bylaw, and it wastes ink and paper, and it hinders our ability to secure some types of grants from the state. So whether you're for or against restricting development, we hope that you support deleting this section of the bylaw. And the planning board unanimously recommended favorable action of this article as well.
There a motion?
Make a motion to recommend and ask for the amount of savings that will be in your department for the next fiscal year as it relates to the lower ink usage.
Second.
All those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Article 21 and 22, I think you want to talk about those together, Jeff or Rebecca, whichever one of you is speaking to them.
I'll start and Rebecca will correct anything I get wrong. So Article 21 relates to short-term rentals. As you may recall, the Board of Selectmen received a number of complaints related to Airbnb and the like, categorized as short-term rentals. So this amendment, which is sponsored by the planning board, as you requested them to propose some action here, it serves 3 purposes. The first is to define what short-term rentals are. The second is to regulate short-term rentals, to show where they would be allowed by what mechanism. And the third is to create an overlay district for the summer village cottage community. We think it makes sense to treat those folks differently. It's a seasonal community, and it's been part of their culture since they were created. So we think it makes sense for those to be allowed by right there. So after a lot of discussion, the planning board decided to define short-term rentals as a time period of 27 days or fewer. And they went back and forth on that for a little while. They thought it could be reasonable in the course of buying or selling homes that you might need a monthly rental. So that they thought was a good starting point. And so the next thing was to figure out where they might be allowed and how they would be regulated. So most of the concerns that the select board heard related to short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. So right out of the bat, this proposal, after defining short-term rentals, would be to prohibit it as a principal use in the residential zoning districts. But it could be allowable on a case-by-case basis in all other districts with benefit of a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then as an accessory use, not the principal use, but as an accessory use, it could be allowed in all the zoning districts with benefit of a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then, as I mentioned before, the overlay district would allow short-term rentals in the summer village community by right. And so the second article, which is related to this one, it would merely serve to define what short-term rentals are, the 27 or fewer consecutive days of renting. And it would create the summer village overlay district. But it would not allow for regulating it as primary or accessory uses anywhere else in town. So it therefore wouldn't be allowed. I don't know if you have any questions about this, or the planning board did recommend unanimous support for this article.
Okay, Rebecca, I should just, do you have anything to add?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, so Jeff and Rebecca, just clarify for me, because there was a lot there. In a residential neighborhood, what is allowed for short-term rentals?
Potentially accessory use of a short-term rental after getting a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So in other words, in a residential district, it's presumed that the dwelling will be used as a single family dwelling. And so one couldn't rent out their home all the time and not be occupied on a regular basis. It would have to be incidental to the primary residential use. So it has to be a single family home first, but you could get special permission to use it as an accessory or minor use that's incidental to the dwelling unit, if that makes sense, with a public hearing process.
Yeah, so let me just ask a couple of questions. So I have a home, I'm moving away, I'm going to rent my house for periods of 2 weeks at a time, indefinitely. Is that allowed? Do I need a special permit? What happens?
I think an argument could be made. If it's 2 weeks, it's obviously short-term rental. If it's not going to be used as a single family dwelling in the ordinary sense of the word, then that may not be allowable. If
may not or will not?
Well, I would like to give our building commissioner some discretion to interpret that, but by and large, in a residential district, residence A, residence B, if it's not going to be used as a single family dwelling, ultimately it would be prohibited.
So it doesn't matter whether it's, so that's 14 days. Okay. What if I'm renting my home for a year? That's not short-term rental, so that's allowed, correct?
That's
okay.
correct.
So the definition of short-term rental, I think, as you said, is 27 days?
Or fewer.
Or fewer. Okay. So another example. I'm moving away, or I'm never coming back. I'm going to use it for 21 days at a time. I'm going to let people come and summer here on Nab Lake for 3 weeks at a time during the months and be vacant in the winter. Is that the special, they go and get a special permit?
Potentially. That to me is more gray, because if you're renting it out for, say, a fraction of the year as opposed to the whole year, that could be possible. I know our zoning bylaw defines accessory as 30% or less when talking about areas. I don't know if that would apply towards time periods as well. I would have to consult with counsel for that. But I do think that's different than if renting it out for 3 months over the summer if you're away, to me is very different than never going back there and renting it out throughout the whole year. To me, that would be prohibited in a residential district.
Okay, so my last comment on it is, it just seems like it's fraught with inconsistency, shall I say. And I'm not sure the people that we heard from, can't even remember when that was, feels like years ago, but many months ago, who were concerned about this. I don't know what this does to allay their fears. I know you guys have spent a lot of time on it, and I don't mean to diminish that, but I'm not sure we have any more clarity when it's still kind of vague and open to interpretation and to the, I don't mean it in the way I'm saying this, but the whim of, people. It just seems like it could be applied very inconsistent. That's just kind of what my gut is telling me after having you explain it more.
So perhaps I didn't do it justice, but right now, if we make no amendment, short-term rentals are just not defined at all. And we unfortunately are in the position of saying a use that is not expressly permitted is therefore prohibited. And so when we had a number of those complaints, that was our starting point. And from a position of informing the public what the expectations are, and from an enforcement perspective, that's not a good first place to begin. So if nothing else, I think defining what short-term is with a certain number of days, time period, that's a great start. And then we're making it clear that as a principal use, it's prohibited in the residential districts. And for all other instances where short-term rentals might be allowed, you still need a special permit, public hearing process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And to me, is it imperfect? Yes, but it's a great starting point, especially as compared to what we have now. And our approach was, these are the most simple and economical changes to our zoning bylaw. We don't know what is going to happen from this or where we're going to go. We looked at other examples where they had 5 to 7 pages of very specific text in their zoning bylaw. And honestly, we don't know how well that fits with Westford. To us, it made sense to come up with a reasonable start, and then we would evaluate and see what happens over the next year or so and fine tune as needed.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Anita had her hand up, and then you, Scott, okay? No?
I didn't need, no, sorry.
Okay, Scott.
So first, thanks, Jeff. I think this is a good start at getting at a problem that's been a thorn in our side. I just have one other question or example. So in light of our discussion before about in-law apartments, so if I've got a in-law apartment and I don't, is that allowed then? My primary residence is still my primary residence. My primary function is to live in the house, but can that accessory dwelling be then rented on a short-term basis, even in a residential area?
So I suppose the requirement for an accessory dwelling unit is you need a special permit to have that use allowed. The zoning board has the ability to impose conditions of approval. There is a requirement that the owner occupy either the primary or accessory dwelling unit for 6 or more months of the year. There's nothing that would prevent someone from petitioning the zoning board to also allow for short-term rental as part of that. But that would be a separate permit, and they can decide on a case-by-case basis what makes sense for that location and based on the surrounding community. So nothing prevents someone from making the request of the zoning board, but it's up to ultimately the zoning board, if this passes, to determine what to do with that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Mark? Yep.
So sorry, one other thing. So has the zoning board opined on this?
They don't
have.
usually opine. Oh, have they, Jeff? I'm sorry.
In this case, because they're being called out as the special permit granting authority, we did bring this proposal before them, and for this article, they did recommend approval. Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong in that.
That's correct. Yep,
Was it unanimous, Jeff?
it was.
I believe it was.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any, and, oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Okay, John Cunningham writes, the motions on Articles 21 and 22 are less descriptive as the warrant, i.e. there's no mention of the sections of the bylaws involved. Motion should include that information. Articles are too similar as currently stated, John Cunningham. I don't have the motions book in front of me, so, but I do believe that all of the, go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, I think the sections are identified, but we will have handouts for town meeting. And it's quite a large document that will eat up all the ink and paper we just saved by your prior action. But all this is available online. It is quite an extensive document. So unless we wanted this motions document to be 30 pages, we have it separate. But it is online and it will be available at town meeting.
Thank you. Scott?
I think I want to say, thanks to the planning board and Jeff and staff and make a motion to recommend 21 and 22.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you and to the planning board for all your hard work on this. I know we have one more, which is
23?
Yeah.
I know, getting there. We have one more, which is 23, but I believe that Bob Schaffer is presenting on that. Is that right, Jeff?
That's correct.
It is, because there he is. Hi, Bob. Go
Hi,
ahead.
how you doing? So, as the most recently elected member of the planning board, and I guess the stuckee with the target, I'm here to talk about the amendment to the bylaw to support drive-through restaurants. So, during my campaign this past spring, I received many questions, comments from Westford residents about what the planning board could and should be doing in terms of a response to the COVID crisis. One question I was asked many times was, why can't I, as a parent or grandparent, have the benefits of access to a drive-through restaurant in Westford? So one of the first things that we did as a planning board upon my joining was we had discussions in July and August about responses to COVID and recommended changes to the zoning bylaws. We basically ended up, after much discussion, zeroing in on the discussion surrounding drive-through restaurants. So we then tasked town staff to prepare the recommended changes, and what you see before you are those recommended changes in the form of a special town meeting article and a motion. So what I want to discuss now is some of the reasons why we thought as a planning board this should be discussed at this time. And I want to mention that the planning board at its last meeting chose to support this 5 to 0. And I know in the past we voted against this. I know it's been controversial, but I think this is a special time at this juncture with COVID. And I think you have to ask yourself, one, how does a drive-through order and pickup process differ from curbside pickups? I think the biggest difference is drive-through offers convenience. It's going to offer better protection from the inclement weather in winter months for both the restaurant servers and the customers. The drive-through design also supports drive-through ordering better, as opposed to curbside, which generally requires that a customer use either online ordering or dialing ordering. Now, with respect to some of the concerns, we've heard many times the concerns with respect to littering, on-site loitering, and I don't think there's going to be little difference between curbside pickup versus drive-through windows in terms of these issues and concerns. And I think curbside pickup has demonstrated that we don't have any significant littering concerns because of passengers receiving their produce in a bag through their window, which would be the same as if you had a drive-up window. Same thing with loitering. I don't think we've had any concerns with loitering because restaurants delivered the product through the window to the customer in a bag. In general, the customers tend to go home or go elsewhere to go consume the product. And if they did consume it on premises, they don't tend to stay around for that long afterwards. So we don't think littering and loitering are going to be much of a concern at this time. And we think curbside pickup is providing the evidence as such. I think one of the reasons we did this also was to address physical and mental health issues for our residents. Obviously, there are some residents who are at elevated risk for COVID, either for themselves or for their parents or for their children. And so for them, they were expressing concerns about having to go into a restaurant to pick up the product, and they were asking for drive-through. Also, there were the situations where in some cases they might have had a child who was at higher risk, and they didn't want to take that child into the restaurant, but didn't feel safe leaving them in the car as well. So they've asked for this. And lastly, there's the mental health issue. We've had a lot of parents just ask, given all the children are going through with social distancing, hybrid learning, virtual play groups, why can't we as a community support those children and provide them a drive-through option for something relatively small as a drive-in meal that the kids want? So we felt all of those were reasonable requests. And for that reason, we are presenting this article here. Now, I'm prepared to address questions, or I can continue to go on, but I think it's easier just to talk to the questions. Yes, Mark.
Well, I'll let Andrea choose.
Excuse me. But yes, I think we can have questions. And Mark, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Bob. So I have a few questions. One is for those who don't understand the various locations where this could happen. Do we have a map that shows what you're proposing and where it's allowed, where it's going to be allowed?
So
I'd like to see that.
I don't have the map in front of me. We do have the zoning districts, but it's one thing to say it's permitted. It's another thing to say it's actually going to be achievable, because that was one of the questions I received during the hearing process was, would this be considered to be fair, since most restaurants or many restaurants really can't offer this as an option? So predominantly the restaurants that can offer this as an option are standalone restaurants that tend to be located on the 110 or Route 40 corridors.
Yeah, so I guess, so I'm really more interested in where it's permitted, because any building can get knocked down, something else built, and it would still be permitted. So I need to know where we're being asked to approve this. Route 40, where? Route 110, where?
Well, I'd have to go to your packet. It's actually in the packet.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Rebecca or Jeff, can you answer that?
Sure. So I can tell you that as a principal use, drive-through for restaurants is proposed in the same locations where restaurants are allowed by right. So I guess Eric's going to
These are
pull it
the
up
things
here.
I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me.
I was just gonna say, Rebecca, unfortunately, that doesn't mean, we need like locations like here.
All right, so let me just read them to you and then we can discuss where they are. I don't know if Eric can go to the zoning map. That might be the easiest, but let me see here. Okay, so these would be, oh geez, I don't have the thing on top. Eric, can you show that graphic again? Okay, so where it would be allowed through special permit as an accessory, or sorry, as a principal use, would be the business limited, the commercial highway, which is mostly the Route 110 corridor, and IA and IB, industrial A and industrial B district. So the B and the BL are, I don't know streets offhand, but they're sort of very small districts. One is around Broadway, one is up to the northwest, and one is up to the, like along Route 40, up in the very northeast part of town. And so that is where they would be. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to need to physically see where these are relative to, so I can envision, let me just give you where my concern is. I have, let's talk about 110 and the number of restaurants that are along 110. Again, forgetting about what's practical, because any of those buildings could get knocked down and something put up at any point in time. So are we talking about, you know, in the future, maybe 10 or 15 potential drive-through restaurants? Is there any limitation to what can happen? If the answer is no, I got a real problem with that. If we're talking about, well, we're going to allow one per X number of, you know, miles or whatever, okay, well, that's something different. And then I have even more of an issue on Route 40, not because I necessarily live closer to there, but because we're talking about a 2-lane road. And there's already been, you know, people who are trying to convert certain pieces of property to commercial restaurant bar use. So I just have a number of questions that I just need to understand better. And those are some of the main ones.
Bob, do you want me to answer that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrea. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure. Rebecca, I mean, we now have the zoning map up, so can you at least, for all of our sakes and for the viewers' sake, show where the zoning districts that this would be permitted in?
Well, it would, and just to clarify, it would only be permitted through special permit, so it wouldn't be a by right use. So it's along the light blue, which is the industrial, or excuse me, the commercial highway, which is along Route 110. This green up on the left-hand side, and then Eric, if you scroll down a little bit.
So Rebecca, just because it's really small, just identify, you know, what part of town that is. I mean, is it or by street? I think you're up at.
I believe that's in Forge Village.
I think it's Forge Village too as well, Bob, but I just want to make sure.
And then, yeah. So again, this other green, these green sections.
Yeah, I just can't tell where all these are. So in Forge Village, how many drive-through restaurants could there be?
Well, there's no limit on them. It would be at the discretion of the special permit granting authority. So, you know, they could say, oh, we already have 5 there. We're not, you know, we're not willing to approve another one. So it would be a discretionary permit, and there's no limit set.
Yeah, so with let me just be very clear, without limits to any of these areas, my vote is to not recommend.
Okay. Anita?
You know, I'm hearing like these concerns, and I know it's kind of, I know a lot of people are very passionate about this topic, but I actually would support this because of 2 populations that like I'm in touch with. One is mothers of young children, or parents in general of really young children. Drive-throughs are a godsend. And also for people with physical disabilities, with mobility issues, drive-throughs allow for increased accessibility. So I would support this, but I understand the concerns about limits.
Tom, and then Scott.
Maybe a question for Bob. Did you consider restricting it just to the 110 corridor, or placing any other limits? Because I just think for the public, this could be alarming if there's not more clarity about sort of what the intent is here and what we think the future will look like. Did you consider restricting just to the 110 corridor, or did that just not end up deliberation?
It's interesting you focused on the limits, because that was not one of the concerns that we received either via email, letter, or during the hearing process. So that's certainly a valid concern. But on the other hand, unless you were to take multiple lots, I don't think there's many locations in most of these districts where you have the real estate to support a drive-through option. The concerns we were getting was it wasn't open to enough businesses, enough restaurants, and it would be not fair, because there'd only be a few that could avail themselves of this opportunity. So this is a very different line of questioning we're getting tonight. And I hear you. It's just we hadn't been asked this. This is not something that came up, because the way we looked at it was there just aren't that many lots, even in these districts that Rebecca and Eric are showing here, that would support this kind of a use. And as I want to emphasize, and I've emphasized, and it was stated in previous articles, this is a discretionary permit. It's a special permit, and it's going to require 4 votes of the planning board to approve. And I think evidence has shown in other matters in town, the planning board has been very, very tight in terms of allowing uses that do not stay within the character of Westford. And I think we would be very concerned if we all of a sudden saw a prevalence of applications, like you've stated here, where we saw, more than 5 on the corridor. We're expecting to see 1 or 2. We're not expecting to see 15.
Actually,
Yes,
let me
Mark.
go to Scott first, Mark, okay? Scott?
Right. So I guess I'm kind of torn here, because I'm with Anita. I've had young children. I still have got one functioning adult child, and it is great to go to McDonald's and get chicken nuggets. Not to put out advertisements, but that's what my daughter likes. And I can't if it's August, July, you can't leave in the car. You have to just go to some other town and do it. So it'd be nice to have it on Route 110, but I would support it if it was limited to that corridor where the traffic is is designed to be handled. But I look at these maps and think about what prevents anyone from, if they had the risk in their system, to go to the Commonwealth, Maine, and put a Dunkin' Donuts there instead of a mill. That would just destroy that neighborhood. So I've got qualms about putting drive-throughs in some of these areas that are really neighborhoods, not commercial districts. So I'd be inclined to be opposed to this as it stands.
Mark?
Yeah, so just a further point. So, this site, it's really the unintended consequences here. So I fully support the need of families. We're going to get past COVID at some point in time, right? So I'm not really looking at COVID as the reason to do this. I fully understand the needs of families for whatever reasons, residents wanting access to drive-through. That isn't my concern. During any day and night, the percentage of people who live in this town, who travel through this town, is fairly small. And so whether it be on the way in the morning, or whether it be on the way home, people stopping in Forge Village or along Route 40 for a drive-through where somebody has bought a couple of parcels and decided to do something different when there's no limits on what can happen, I have a problem with. And so I also agree that if it were, along 110 only, also with some limits, I'd be more inclined to support this. But the unintended consequences of the future of these areas that should not have drive-through restaurants, or if they do, it's really, how many can Forge Village have to actually sustain? So again, absent that information, I've not heard anything yet that convinces me to do otherwise, but not support it.
So if I can, I'll just chime in here, mostly for most of the reasons that have been articulated. I can't support this either right now. I also agree with you, Mark, that COVID at some point will pass, okay? And we will not be in this situation forever. And I don't think that we should be changing or making new bylaws, based on what is not a permanent situation. And so, it's not just, we've been talking about Forge Village, but I also believe it's also NAB and NAB-Nasset and the intersection of, Plain and Oak Road that is also IB, business, limited business. And again, that's a residential area. So I do think I can't support this as it's written here tonight. Not to say I don't appreciate, Anita, what you said about both families with young children and also disabled adults or families with disabled children. I certainly appreciate and hear their concern, but I think we can do better than this. And so I think for those reasons, just as written and presented here, I agree with the others in not being able to support it. Rebecca, I saw you had your hand up. So did you want to say something else?
Well, I just want to clarify something, which is that, and this isn't to change anyone's thinking necessarily, but I just want to clarify for the record that the green zone that is shown on this map is Residence B. So the zones, and I don't know if Eric wants to zoom out just so you can see exactly what we're talking about. But the zones that we're talking about are the yellow, the light blue, the royal blue, the orange, and the pink. So not the green and not the white and not the maroon, but just to clarify.
But it is in areas that are, some of them are in residential areas still, so.
I make a motion to not recommend Article 23.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor of not recommending Article 23? Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita?
No.
And I vote aye. So it's 4-1. But thank you to the planning board for all of their work that they've done, not only on this article, but on all the articles that are coming forward at town meeting on Saturday. We really do appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. And with that, guys, we've made it through the warrant. And we've got all our recommendations for a town meeting. So moving along to our 8:55 p.m. item, which is old new business. Patty, are you out there?
She is, but she didn't think it was necessary unless you have a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, then we have a request from Patty to approve the presidential election warrant. Is there a second? All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. We have a request to appoint election officers for terms to expire on July 31st, 2021 is listed in our packets tonight. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. All those in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
I just have a question. Ask a question. Okay. Is
Sure.
there a cutoff date for appointing election officers?
I don't know the answer to that. Jody, do you? Or if Patty is out there, can
Patty,
she answer that?
Patty, you need to chime in. I don't think there is, but let's let Patty chime in.
She's mute.
Well, while she's unmuting, I'm asking because I just feel like we could maybe support Patty with the recruitment of election officers. And I know the age minimum is lower maybe than what people realize, and just to get people more engaged and active, just trying to figure out what point we should stop recruitment.
Okay. But, good point. And we'll get that information from Patty at some point.
It's fine.
Okay, our next item is to review the draft of the 2021. Yes, Jody, are you hearing from Patty?
Well, not yet, but do you want to appoint those election workers?
Oh, thank you. We didn't appoint them. Thank you. So I think we had, wait, we did.
We did.
have a motion
Yeah, so my
and-
question came after.
I'm sorry, I just looked down at my notes.
did.
You did. Sorry.
Ah, all right.
There goes that raise.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, hold on one
Okay,
second. I am hearing from Patty.
Okay.
She said she was talking. I don't know. She says she's blocked. So,
Good job, Eric.
so I'll just say, what's the answer? She's texting me. Oh, sorry. I need a drum roll. Yes, there's no limit on when we appoint election workers. So thank you. Thank you.
Great. Okay, our next item is to review the draft 2021 Board of Selectmen Town Manager goals. Anita had a couple of comments, and I added one at the end. So Jody? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
We missed an agenda item is probably what she's trying to say. Yeah.
Number 3.
Veterans Day.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, consider alternatives to events on Veterans Day in light of COVID-19 pandemic. Is Ryan out there? Is he speaking to this?
He's supposed to be on, but he's having some internet trouble at his home, so he will probably not make the conversation.
Okay, so do either you, Eric, or Jody want to present what Ryan is proposing?
I vote Eric.
Sure, so let me turn on my camera here. Hello again. So Ryan is actually proposing to work with WCAT and do a virtual remembrance for Veterans Day this year celebration, similar to what we did for Memorial Day in 2020. So he is seeking the board's permission to do so. He's feared that participation in this year's event would be limited due to a lot of the veteran community having health concerns for participating in the parade and the event.
Mm-hmm. I don't see any issue. I mean, I think whatever, virtual video he can put together, that would be terrific. And certainly understand the concern with respect to a, any kind of public celebration with the veterans. So do we need a motion for this, Jody, or can we just say, yes, go ahead and put together a video and work with that?
I mean,
Okay. Scott?
I was going to say they did a just wonderful job with Memorial Day. So given the quality of that presentation, I think by all means they should do something similar for November.
Great. And it was a nice job for Memorial Day. Okay, now we're at our review draft 2021 Board of Selectmen Town Manager goals. And as I started to say, Anita had some question and changes, and I added a 15 at the bottom. So I don't know if other folks have some comments, changes or suggestions, or if we're prepared to approve these goals tonight. I do think we need to answer Anita's questions that she raised. And the first was, is it premature to add this with respect to the DEI committee, which was to support the committee, seek any available grant funding to assist equity assessment efforts. I'm not sure it's premature to ask, to support them. I mean, the town staff is going to support getting them established and set up anyway. And I think if the town staff came across some sort of grant that could help them, or they in their research came across a grant, it would seem to me that we would all want to work together to try and obtain that grant. So I don't know that it's premature to ask that. I don't know what other folks think. So, Mark? Yeah? No? Okay. And then Anita's second comment was to support the town and school safety task force charged by soliciting broad community input to develop specific safety and wellness communications. And she asked, or she said, this seems to be something that the task force should be tasked with. So Tom, I am going to let you answer that one.
That's a fair point, and we could tweak the wording, Anita, if it seems like Jody's leading that charge, just because it starts off with support. Maybe it should say support in soliciting instead of support by. But in any case, just the idea is that her participation and the staff's participation is highly valued in this, and this is really the next task in front of the committee. The language that was here before largely related to things that have already happened, so just wasn't appropriate.
Anita?
Yeah, just the way I read it, originally I thought it was tasking Jody or her staff to solicit that community input. So I think a little bit of, if you don't mind tweaking it, if that's okay with everyone else, it's just clearer.
So we could say, absolutely fine. So we could say something like support the town and school safety task force charged by supporting solicitation of broad community input, if that helps. It's more of a participating role than a leadership type role.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Happy to make that change.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 Select Board Town Manager goals?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. And lastly, under old and new business, is to consider approval of a new contract with the town manager. So the select board would like to announce tonight that we have extended our town manager's contract through June 30th, 2024. It was set to expire June 30th, 2021. And we have discussed with her and have extended her contract through 2024. I think we all spoke last week about Jody's accomplishments, both this year and over the past years for the town, so I won't reiterate them, but except to say that we are truly appreciative for her leadership and her creativity and her care and compassion for the town and all of us who both live, work, and pass through this town. So we do need to vote the contract in open meeting again. So if I could have a motion to approve Jody's contract extension.
Motion to approve the contract extension.
Second.
And is there a second? And all those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. 4 more years, Jody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Our consent agenda. We have a request to approve the following for the town's portable electronic emergency sign. The event is the 2020 special town meeting. The applicant is Lynn Cohen on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Westford Steering Committee. Location on or near Town Common. The date Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 through Monday, October 19th, 2020. Second, an event, the presidential election. Again, the applicant is Lynn Cohen on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Westford Steering Committee. The location is on or near the Town Common. The date is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 through Friday, November 6th, 2020. Lastly, to amend a banner request, and the event is the presidential election. The applicant is Lynn Cohen on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Westford Steering Committee. The location change is Old Center Fire Station, 51 Main Street. The date, October 27th, 2020 through Friday, November 6th, 2020. I think I just, for anybody who doesn't know, the reason that these requests are being made is that in the past we have strung banners across Main Street, either in front of the parish center or the library. The company that hung our banners is no longer doing it for us. And so right now we don't have a banner, a company that will hang our banners across the street. So the league is asking for the electronic emergency signs and the amendment of the banner request in order to advertise both the special town meeting and the presidential election. So that's the reason for all of that. Jody?
Just to be clear, Lynn talked to me today. She's not asking on behalf of the league for the town to use the electronic sign. She's just asking the Board of Selectmen to consider using the sign for that purpose. So it is not a request by the league.
It says on my agenda that it was a request by the league.
I think it wasn't crystal clear. And I do think it's important for you just to know that we've never used the sign for anything but emergencies. Prior board had instructed me not to do that. If this board wants to change that, we are happy to bring the sign out for these two events. Takes about an hour, hour and a half for highway workers to do it. But I just want to be clear, this would be the Board of Selectmen wanting to put that sign out. We have not done that for nonprofits.
Well, since I think we should be encouraging people to go to special town meeting, and I think we should be encouraging everyone to vote, I don't have an issue in using our emergency sign board for this, as well as amending the banner, particularly because we don't have anybody to hang banners for us anymore. So that's my opinion. Anita?
Could we approve it with some sort of disclaimer amendment or something that if there's an emergency need in that window of time, very specific, I guess, that then, we could use it for the town's needs?
You mean if an emergency came up within that time period that we would use this? I'm fine.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to make a big to-do about this, but there's no reason to have the electronic emergency sign on the common after Tuesday the 3rd. Voting is over.
I think
So,
that was to accommodate the highway department, but you know, if we can get, I agree. I mean, after, you know, by Wednesday the 4th, it should be gone. So
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be up after Tuesday night. So
do
I'll
we
make a
want
motion to
Wait a minute,
recommend
wait.
the
Mark, before you make a motion, Scott had something to say. Okay.
I guess I certainly support it for town meeting because we want to get the word out. If you don't know, there's a presidential election November 3rd. You've been living under a rock for the past 6 months, so I guess I wouldn't vote no, but I wouldn't call that an emergency sign kind of need, but you know, so be it.
Okay. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's why I said I'm not going to make a big to-do out of this thing. I don't think it needs an emergency sign, but if everybody wants to do it, that's fine with me. There's no reason to have it past Wednesday.
I'll make that motion.
So is Tom, just for clarifying, is your motion that that the portable electric signs sign be used, but that it be taken down on November 4th for the after the presidential election?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, Jody.
Just for clarification, are you also approving in this motion to hang a banner on the fire station, the old fire station?
Yes.
Yes. We'll make it look better.
And that, Anita?
Sorry, and just for clarification again, Lynn Cohen is asking, not on behalf of the league.
It's actually going to be the board. It's going to be us who does it. Right, Jody?
I
It's
think
under
the
our
league,
auspices. The league is asking us to do it.
the league is recommending the Board of Selectmen authorize to use this sign for these two events and allow a banner, right?
Okay.
And I do think it's with the understanding that if for some reason the sign actually needs to be used for an emergency during that period, it will be. Okay, with all of those clarifications. All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have minutes for approval. We have a regular session of August 4th and August 11th. Is there a motion to approve and release?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Any board reports or updates? Seeing none. Jody, town manager's report.
Yes, we have a request from the town clerk to accept a grant in the amount of $9,681 for planning and conducting a safe and secure election, as awarded by the Center for the Tech and Civic Life. And we have contracts with New England Stormwater Management for catch basin cleaning in the amount of $59,250 as requested by the DPW, and Eastern Salt for road salt in the amount of $49.50 per ton as requested by Highway. Purchase orders, George Wilkinson for services related to a boiler replacement at the police station in the amount of $114,148. From Road and Bush lease expense account, United Rentals for water intrusion response, rental equipment, the amount of $1,347.94, and Dennis K. Burke for gas and diesel fuel in the amount of $39,800 as requested by the Highway Department.
Anybody have any questions about any of those?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye.
Motion
Is
to
there a
waive.
motion to waive?
Second.
Is there a second? We're doing this by hand. All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. Good night, everybody. Good night, Westford. Everybody stay safe.
Good
See you
night.
at town meeting.
See you at town
Saturday.
meeting
With umbrellas.
Saturday.